What is going on, football fans? Hope everyone's having a pretty good day. I'm just doing a little bit of weekend recording here. Uh, Nice little slow day here, Saturday as of recording. Enjoyed a little bit of a fun birthday the other night. Yeah, it's been a little bit of a slow morning, but I wanted to come by talk about the Bears draft in particular. A couple other teams I thought had interesting drafts, to put it more nicely, and just kind of give some thoughts about my team, the Bears, and see what you all think about it. So, Bears had a pretty interesting draft, and I've been seeing a lot of the grades going around on NFL.com, CBS, other bigger sites, and there's a lot of praise for the Bears draft. A lot of A's, which to a degree I agree with, but trying to be as objective a Bears fan as possible, I do have some thoughts and concerns related to the draft. Um, I will say, in seeing Bears fans' reaction, this is just a little diatribe about my fellow Bears fans. It's almost a pastime of us to complain about the Bears draft. And I've seen more people talking about trading up to have got to get Ashton Genty, Will Campbell, Mason Graham. And as great as it would have been to nail those guys and get one of them on the team, the Bears did the moves that they should have done. There's still a lot of holes on the roster. There's depth to be gained. And this was not the draft to trade up. And that's what I gathered. There's not a ton of elite blue chip guys that are worth mortgaging the future for. Now, I think the Bears have a lot of good starters kind of ready to go, or at the bare minimum depth pieces. And I think it's better to have accumulated more players in this draft, because it seems like the gap separating the top two prospects like Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, that was a pretty wide gap. But everyone else seems to be on a relatively equal level in terms of skill and ability. So I'm really glad the Bears did not trade up for Ashton Genty. It would have been great to have him, but to trade up with the Raiders at 6, or probably you would have to leapfrog them, go 5 or sooner, it just would have been too much. So with our first round pick, snagging Colston Loveland was a little surprising. I initially pegged the Bears to get O-line or D-line. Those are kind of the two that I had hoped for personally. So to go with tight end, especially one who was not widely considered the top prospect, was an interesting move. But after digging more into Colston Loveland's game, the more I'm warming up to it. And it seems like he's going to be a really good mismatch piece on Ben Johnson's offense. I remember Ben Johnson saying in press conferences that Loveland reminded him of Sam Laporta, which is a very positive thing, considering Sam Laporta had, I would say, one of the best rookie years by a tight end ever, even better than Mike Ditka. There we go. So it feels like that's going to be a natural fit. He's a natural receiver and seems like he has a chance to be a really good mismatch player. And to a degree, I have the feeling that the new staff is a little bit out on Cole Kmet, and I don't blame them for that. I like Cole Kmet. He's a good dude, nice guy, grew up around Illinois, went to Notre Dame, good kid. But and I will give him credit that the Bears' quarterback play hasn't been great. Caleb and Justin Fields the last 2-3 years have not been the best quarterback play, but there have been stretches where he just disappears from the offense completely. And you would imagine with younger players, younger quarterbacks, you would want that security blanket kind of guy in the tight end. So the fact that he just wasn't able to make his presence known in the game is probably a reason they picked up Loveland at number 10. Now, they talk about 2 tight end sets for the Bears offense, Ben Johnson running 2 tight end sets, but this feels like it's either going to be the Bears have one of the top tight end rooms in the league, and maybe a top 5 perhaps, or at worst, Kmet gets traded, phased out, and Colston Loveland is the guy. Totally fair. I was also surprised to see the Bears going for a wide receiver. It felt like it was the best available pick on the board kind of move. And Luther Burden out of Missouri seems like a pretty enticing fit. Now, obviously, it's hard to project his career when he just got drafted a week ago. But the comparisons of a Deebo Samuel type player seems to bode pretty well as a weapon for the offense. Now, I think 39 was probably considered a steal for this player. There were a lot of projections of first round for Luther Burden. So he gets to learn under DJ Moore, brings a lot of youth to the room. Keenan Allen was serviceable for sure, but after 14 years, you got to go younger at that position. So it would have been nice to keep Keenan, and then you have 4 high-quality receivers, but I like the move, especially considering that it serves well as the best available on the board kind of pick. The only downside being, with those 2 selections, with 10 and 39, they miss out on some chances to get blue chip guys on the O-line and the D-line. Now, they addressed it later in the 3rd round and the 4th round. They got Ozzie Trapilo, something like that, and Shamar Turner out of Texas A&M. So I think those are going to be solid starters at some point. But you would have hoped, considering the Bears' lack of pass rush outside of Montez Sweat, that D-line would have been a big need. They must have really liked Colston Loveland, and they must have really liked Luther Burden as well, because that's what they pulled the trigger on. But at number 10, it'll be interesting to see how Loveland performs in comparison to blue chip defensive players. I honestly thought they could have gone for a Michael Williams or a Jalen Walker. Clearly, they feel like their defense is good enough, but again, it feels like the Bears' D-line is not strong outside of Montez Sweat. Maybe Turner is a nice plug and play in the middle. Maybe some of their other guys can start to come on later. I know Dominique Robinson was a guy they like in the room, but that kind of leaves a lot to be desired. And to address running back for the Bears, so many people wanted us to take Ashton Genty or Omarion Hampton or one of the Ohio State running backs in the 2nd round. And considering the team has a plethora of needs, it just felt too rich to try to trade up for an Ashton Genty or to take a running back at number 10 or 39. But I kind of like the running back route. Maybe it's a hot take as a Bears fan, but DeAndre Swift, when he has good blocking, is a pretty solid player. I don't think he's top 5, but is he in the top 50% of the league? I think he has that chance, 100%. We also have Roschon Johnson, who was so underutilized in the last coaching scheme. I feel like he kind of provides the hammer in Ben Johnson's kind of dual running back system. I remember seeing the stat on it. I think he was 5 for 5 on 3rd and short, 3rd and goal, 4th and short, I want to say. So he can get those tough yards. He just needs the damn ball. And for whatever reason, our coaching staff just doesn't give him a chance. So Roshan might be able to make that happen. And then Kyle Monangai, I think that's the way to pronounce it, in the 7th round out of Rutgers, is actually a pretty solid player. I remember coming across some of his stats. A unanimous first team All Big Ten, 4.6 40-yard dash, so not terrible. And then 139 missed tackles forced. First in the NCAA since 2023. And honestly, this was such a deep running back class that you were always going to find a guy later on just because there's so much depth and quality coming out of college this year. And again, it would have been great to get Ashton Genty or Travion Henderson or Dylan Sampson, Caleb Johnson. But we had so many needs to address. Extra tight end. I know everyone's saying Luther Burns going to be a slot receiver, but who knows? Eventually he could challenge for number 2. It's better to bring more talent and more competition into these kind of crowded rooms. So I kind of like that move. But we have a chance to see some emergence out of this running back room. And I would imagine, based on Ben Johnson's success in Detroit, it's not likely that he would want just one bell cow kind of running back, which I imagine Genty is going to be. And same with Omarion Hampton. So it seems to work better to have these multiple backs to rotate in, depending on the context and the situation. So I like the pickup. Monangai could start to make a push for that number 2 role potentially. I like what they did, in all honesty. I am still concerned, though, about O-line and D-line. So it's going to be really interesting to see how those units perform this year. If they can keep Caleb upright, that would be fantastic. And the last point about the Bears now is that, I hate to say it, but there's so much damn pressure on Caleb now. You can't really say that the O-line sucks because they just got some big name free agents. They replaced the entire interior of the O-line. You can't say that Caleb doesn't have weapons. DJ Moore, Roma Dunze was a first-round pick. Colston Loveland, first-round pick. Luther Burden, high second-round pick. Cole Kmet was also a second-round pick, but we'll see how he's going to perform. You can't really say that he has no line, he has no weapons, he has no scheme. They got one of the best offensive minds at head coach now. And head coach, play caller, he's not going to go anywhere for a while. You actually have a chance to build a very stable offense and implement the system. So, I hate to say it, but there are just no more excuses from the quarterback room. At this point, it's kind of up to Caleb to perform to what he's capable of. Now, that doesn't mean playoffs, but is it improbable to say the Bears ought to push for the playoffs? Be in the conversation around November, December? I think they have a viable shot to make a wild card push, but a lot of it's going to depend on how Caleb can perform in this new system. Last year, Bears fans can agree on this, I'm sure. It was such chaotic coaching that probably most quarterbacks were not going to succeed. Having Shane Waldron get kicked to the curb by, week 6? Having your wide receiver coach be elevated to offensive coordinator, then a month later elevated to interim head coach, that just is a recipe for a disaster. And now you have stability at coaching. Now you have a pretty secure offensive line. We'll see how they all gel. Could be rocky early in the year. Let's give it a chance. But on paper, the O-line should be much better. On paper, the receiving room is pretty stacked. I would say a top 10 unit before we even take the field. 2 quality starting tight ends. You have depth on the running back room. It kind of falls on to Caleb to just put his game together. So it's going to be interesting. I know it's early May, and I love the summer. I'm sure you guys do too. But when there's that chill in the air, when September starts to roll around, when we have our Hall of Fame game and training camp and week 1's coming up, I get pretty happy about that. So we have a long way to go until we hit the gridiron, but let's take a look at a couple other teams' drafts. There's some peculiar situations I just wanted to touch upon real fast. So watching Atlanta over the last 2 years, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the owner being kooky. I don't know if there's some just weird situations in the building. Someone's got some skeletons in the closet or some forbidden tapes. I don't know. But Atlanta just kind of acts erratic. That was kind of I was trying to think of a way to describe it. And erratic was the first word that came to mind. And I'll explain what I mean. Last year, trying to just repair their weird quarterback situation, they've been trying to put band-aids on a broken leg with Spencer Rattler, with Taylor Heineke playing quarterback. It was just weird. And then they want to try to solve the situation. They give Kirk Cousins a $90 million guaranteed contract for a couple of years. Then draft Michael Penix number 8 overall. That's just stuff most teams don't do. And maybe they just view the upcoming quarterback class as not good enough. And they thought, hey, Michael Penix and some of these other quarterbacks, they look like the best options over the next 2 or so years. Let's just take them now, take it and forget it. Fair enough. But then Kirk Cousins is kind of on the outside looking in, but has a no trade clause, and there's no incentive for him to waive it and get traded. So now he's a $27 million a year backup with a bad Achilles and just tapering off in terms of play. That's just a weird situation. And then trying to fix the defense, I really like that they got Jalen Walker. He was a guy that I thought the Bears could take, but slid to Atlanta. Awesome. And then for the Falcons to double down, trade next year's first round pick back up to 26 for James Pierce. That kind of stuff just doesn't really happen. And, maybe these gambles are going to pay off in the end. It's hard to say in May, but this is the kind of erratic decision making that gets GMs fired, that gets coaches fired, that just sends a franchise into chaos. Now, I'm not saying that Atlanta's going to suck this year. I mean, it's possible. It's kind of hard to see them usurping the Bucs right now to take the division. But Atlanta just, again, they're making moves that good franchises wouldn't normally do. It's kind of rare to see a stable franchise like Baltimore or Philadelphia or Kansas City making moves like this. So I do hope it works. They must have thought that they were kind of a pass rush away from really competing and thinking, hey, we could get 2 plug-and-play guys, Jalen Walker, James Pierce, build our pass rush, and they think that they can put it together now. I hope they can. I hope it doesn't all blow up in their face. But again, I just want to point out that I just found it really erratic and strange to make the moves that they've made. But regardless of those, I do like that they're trying to build their defense and get tougher. I thought Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame and Billy Bowman out of Oklahoma were two really good pickups, actually. Those guys are thumpers. I really got to see Xavier Watt perform in college football playoffs, and that dude is a stud. Like, he honestly could start day one for Atlanta and just really help to revamp the secondary. And then Billy Bowman playing on that Oklahoma defense, pretty much Oklahoma's defense carried them all year long. And the dude is a playmaker. Maybe he gets on the field right away. It's kind of hard to say. But I do like the defensive emphasis. It feels like Atlanta did fill out the offense with high round picks last couple of years. Now they're trying to slap the defense together and see if they could win the division. So while there's optimism for Atlanta, I feel like for this next team, I feel like there's disaster possibly waiting to happen. There's just a powder keg going on in South Florida. Now, I don't want to be too doom and gloom with Miami. I like a lot of the pieces that they have. Tua is a great person, great quarterback. They have they had a couple of Boilermakers with Raheem Mostert, but I think he's gone now, sadly. But it just kind of feels like Miami is on pillars of sand. And there's just so much potential to go wrong. Way more potential than there is for things to go right. So in their draft, I like that they tried to get tougher on the lines. Kenneth Grant at 13, defensive tackle out of Michigan. I think that was a good pickup. I did see online that some considered it a reach at number 13, but when you have a guy like Kenneth Grant on the board, sometimes you just don't need to overthink it. Just think, hey, get a hard-nosed defensive tackle, get tougher inside. It's kind of hard to argue with that. Maybe they could have finessed some trades back, but seems like Miami just wanted to get tougher up front. Just get a good guy, get a playmaker, plug him in immediately. And then they got a guard out of Arizona who's got a longer last name, and I don't want to butcher it. Jonah, welcome to Miami. Pick number 37. And then their next pick was in the 5th round, defensive tackle Jordan Phillips out of, I want to say, Ohio State. But they tried to get tougher up front, but with only a 1st round, 2nd round, and then 5th and lower, it's hard to say if they got a ton of starters out of this draft. And they're banking on these guys being immediate impact players because Christian Wilkins leaving in free agency, they're still feeling that pain. They're also feeling the pain of Teron Armstead retiring. So they're hoping Grant and Jonah can plug and play immediately because they have these massive voids on both lines. And it's hard to say if it's going to pan out. And I worry about the O-line in particular because last year it was shaky. And we've seen over the last few years, it takes one Tua injury from Miami just being irrelevant. And I'm sorry, that's just the case. Without Tua, the whole offense falls apart. We saw it in the playoffs. We saw it down the stretch when Tua had concussion problems. And can this offensive line, who was leaky already, now possibly starting a rookie here at guard, are they going to keep Tua upright? It's really, really hard to say. And then another thing related to the team, not necessarily draft and personnel wise, but trading Jalen Ramsey seems reflective of the culture in Miami. Now, it was an interesting story in the offseason where Miami was kind of reporting and complaining that fines were not working when players were showing up late. That is alarming, because I heard this from another podcaster and it makes perfect sense. On an NFL roster, who can afford to pay the fines to be late routinely? Well, it's not going to be the undrafted free agent. It's not going to be the low round pick. It's not going to be the depth guy. Because guess what? If you are an undrafted safety and you're late, they'll just cut your ass right away. Like, why keep this guy around? He's not making any money. So I imagine most players in that spot would not be trying to rack up tardy fines. They would get cut or just be losing a big chunk of their salary. So who's likely the one being tardy to meetings all the time? Look who's on the trading block for Miami. Jalen Ramsey. Older guy, has been I don't want to say a head case, but in Jacksonville, he was definitely a little bit of a head case, needless to say. And then also open to trading Tyreek Hill. Now, to get multiple first rounders would be a great haul, but that's pretty unlikely. So what is that saying, though? Your big name marquee players, Jalen Ramsey, Tyreek Hill, seem like the ones who are just showing up late? And especially in the NFL, what does that really communicate? It just shows that they don't respect who's in charge. They don't respect the leadership on the team. And that's why I wonder how this could possibly go. Because if your marquee players are not respecting your coach, Mike Macdonald, and if you have a leaky offensive line, you've lost a lot of guys in free agency, you're one quarterback injury away from being a potential first overall pick, it just feels like so much can go wrong compared to how much can go right. And I don't wish ill on Miami. I hope that they can make it work out. I really, really do. But when you have players who are repeatedly showing up late, that is a culture issue. And I can't help but wonder, can Mike Macdonald figure it out? Can he actually create that disciplined, tough, resilient culture where these guys aren't going to show up late? It's hard to say. So those are a couple teams who I thought had interesting drafts and kind of interesting situations. I'm optimistic about my Bears. Bears fans complaining about it. Let's just wait till the pads come on. We'll see how everyone performs. I'm really excited. And I know that starting a NFL, football, and college basketball pod in the summer is, it just kind of leaves you wanting more of it. And as weird as it sounds, I'm kind of looking forward to fall already. And especially in November when college basketball kicks off, NFL is getting in the thick of the playoff hunt. I'm excited for it. So I hope you guys had a great day today. Enjoy the rest of it. I am probably going to go take a little nap. So I will catch you all later. If you made it this far, I appreciate your time. Thanks for listening.